Welcome to the No BS Short-Term Rental Podcast, an unfiltered look into the global vacation and short-term rental industry.
I'm Mateo Bradford.
And I'm John Stokinger.
And this is our podcast. We bring the right people to the table at the right time, giving you an inside view and take on the short-term rental industry like no other podcast can.
Good morning, Mateo. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, brother. How are you?
I'm couldn't be better. It's a busy week, busy week. I was up late last night doing some final editing for Derailed and doing some final things. And that was crazy. We got that out this morning. So if you're not listening to Derailed, you need to go ahead and give it a listen. Go over to derailedpodcast.com and check that out. We had our 100th episode last week.
Yeah, crazy.
So here we are starting 101. Here's to our next 100.
No, last week was a good week, man. Like, also, I was super stoked to be able to do that episode with my sister. So if you're listening to this week's episode of Derailed, you will hear an episode with myself and my sister. So
it was good. Yeah. And we had
my real sister.
Dr. Rachel Gainsbourg's on as well as a lieutenant. She's feisty.
Job.
And she did great. So it was really good. But let's get into this week. I'm excited. I love this week's guest. It's a long time coming. So I'll without further ado, I'll let you go ahead and give a good introduction here.
Oh man, we got an amazing guest today with a great story. Salt of the earth individual. Anyone who knows our next guest will know exactly what I mean. His hustle and energy is ridiculous. Like when you look at everything that he's doing within the space and having the energy to continue to create and do more things, from managing to health and to safety to investing, and this guy's got it all, and he's got his hands in everything. So total respect for this individual. Psyched to have him on the show. Welcome, Mr. Eric Thibodeaux.
Great, thanks, Mateo. Thanks for bringing me in. Yeah.
It's interesting because when we were talking briefly before we hit record, and like anytime I see Eric pop up on LinkedIn, I'm like, oh, what's Eric doing now? And it seems like there's a new business venture. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like this guy's insane. The amount of, but it brings value. I mean, and if you can go ahead and deliver value, and I say these things like, oh, he's got his fingers in everything, and then I think of like this kind of stuff that we're doing, all the things that we're like involved in. It's like, oh my goodness, like certain people can spread themselves thin, but yet still deliver across. At some point, when you're burning that candle on all the ends, I'm sure you're gonna, I'm sure Eric you'll agree, you'll have to slow down at some point, but it's impressive.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, definitely slowing down and just working to implement all the things that we've launched. Certainly,
I love it. Well, I mean, so you're the founder and CEO of Safer VRs. You're the CEO of Current Tides. You just went ahead and started this new like foam insulation business, and you're into an investment. You got like so many different things. Tell us your story. Like how did you stumble into vacation rentals?
Yeah. So started back in 2003. We lived in Alabama, and we would go down to Gulf Shores, Orange Beach to vacation. In 2002, actually, we said, hey, we're going to buy a vacation rental. We didn't know anything about it. And we chickened out. We didn't buy it. And then 2003 came along, and we said, okay, we're going to buy a vacation rental. And we did. We bought our first property there in Gulf Shores, a little 2-bedroom, 2-bath property. And ever since then, we've been buying and selling vacation rentals. Today, we currently own 6, own 2 personally. And then we also have 4 in investments there that are in syndication in Gulf Shores and Orange Beach, Alabama. And then we also have some in Fredericksburg, Texas. We have, we're building through the bigger Texas Vacation Rental Fund. Right now, we have a 5-bedroom property there, and we're looking to grow that into much bigger. We want to add 4 more cabins. We hit a snag, as we probably realized, the Fed is raising rates, and
Yeah.
the market is definitely tightened some. So we're reevaluating that right now. We do believe we have excellent opportunities there. So that's kind of like the investment piece. I've invested in. I really started out in, even though I started vacation rentals, I did and still have quite a bit of multifamily. I don't know the exact number. It's around 4,000 multifamily units in about 30 different investment
Just wait,
houses.
wait, 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 wait. I love how you just oh, I don't know the number. I'm thinking like
Hmm.
17, 18, about 4K or so units. Love
Yeah,
it.
I don't remember the exact number. We buy and sell, it's just it's passive investments, that I've done through the years. And today I still do some multifamily passive, but really everything's in vacation rentals right now. I think that's the best asset class to invest in. For me, I mean, there's some other things we could look at, but I enjoy it quite a bit. So yeah, we've got quite a bit of single family, multifamily, office buildings, medical buildings, things that we've invested in through the years. And so along the way, we created in 2019, we started Current Tides, vacation rentals there with just our two properties we had at the time. And today we have 55 properties that we're managing for others in the Gulf Shores, Orange Beach market. And we managed two HOA associations there as well. So that's kind of the investment side of it and what we're doing in vacation rentals. So the other thing I've done most of my career, I've worked in, I'm a safety professional, safety and fire protection engineer. I have multiple degrees in that field. And I worked in oil and gas and general industry. And when I was back in Egypt, I just finished almost 7 years in Egypt. And then I retired from that in December of 2022. I was locked down in Egypt for 13 weeks during COVID. And we just worked. And basically, I had this idea. I heard from one of the podcasts talking about how safety was going to be really important in vacation rentals this year, in that particular year. And I said, you know what, I could do that. And so basically, I created Safer VRs in July of 2020 with the purpose intent to help vacation rental owners and managers improve safety and loss prevention in their businesses. And since then, it's grown, and I'm looking to grow it more in that. So love to talk a lot about that. Basically, my two passions, real estate and safety, combined into one great business.
So I love this, and
Yeah, me too.
I definitely want to dive into this. There are, when I think safety in vacation rentals, because I know you, I think you, and I also think another gentleman who is all a lot of it's gloom and doom. And that's his tactic and their tactic. But like, how are you different? What's a differentiator for you compared to what the team at Breezeway is doing with their safety? And what it of course there's room for so many, but it's all based on differentiators. So what makes you different?
Yeah, so I have a lot of respect for what the Breezeway team is doing, and I certainly respect that and listen. And I'm a Breezeway user in Current Tide, so
Yeah.
no problems there. However, Safer VRs is all about. I believe that we provide and feel we provide a holistic safety and loss prevention service, and what I mean by that is I meet every business owner or property manager where they are, and I come in and I want to understand what they're doing, and I want to support them. And that is more than just I'm checking properties. Okay. I want to educate them in what they can look for. I want to then help them build a system that checks these properties. Okay. And then I want to help them integrate all these activities in safety and loss prevention in how they work each day. I also provide leadership training, which I just started building some material there. And then I offer what I call the Awakening Vacation Rental Safety Membership. So it's a membership where I want to get property managers and owners involved and in a membership group where we can learn and have community and grow together and share. I also have consulting. I do safety consulting where a property manager or owner may ask for a particular topic, which I built one for someone, and it's called incident management. Basically, what do you do when an incident occurs? I gave them 5 steps of things that they should do. And I told my VA, okay, here you go, post this out on Kajabi. We use Kajabi, a portal for people to go in and access the information.
Right.
Well, he posted it live, like as a podcast, on my Safe from VR podcast. So I said, okay, well, we'll do both, right? We'll do both. It'll be a benefit for everyone because this is really what it's all about. It's benefits. So I've been doing that. And then I also do some things that maybe some people feel maybe controversial. I do expert witness testimony in vacation rentals and vacation rental safety. And to me, it's about, I want to support property managers and owners. Sometimes that means it's tough love, right? On the front side. But then there's also times where, as an expert witness, I'm supporting, the plaintiff has hired me to come in and look at a particular case. And I've told people out there, look, I'll support you. If you're part of my membership, I will support you in the event of a lawsuit or an insurance issue. But if you're not, then I certainly evaluate each case and then decide whether I'm going to take it or not take it and just go right from there. So
unfortunately, I'd assume that that's probably on the rise as a needed person is to go in and do that. Is that something that you're seeing a lot of, the need to go ahead and support and testify?
Yeah. So I'm working on 2 cases right now. But
Wow.
you're one of a couple or 3 people in the entire world who can speak to this in a powerful way with experience and in history. Yeah, I definitely see it could be improving. And it's just one, if you look at the legs of the chair that we have in say per VRs, it's just one leg. And I think professional property managers definitely have, more than the individual property owners or people who just rent on Airbnb, and not really employ a lot of the safety and loss prevention tactics. But that's present there, and that impacts the industry, right? And I had a conversation with Jim Olin about this, and because he kind of pushed me in this direction.
Okay.
A couple of years ago, and he said the vacation rental industry needs to understand that managing safety and loss prevention is important, and not everybody's going to listen to what you have to say on the proactive side. So
they will on the reactive though.
Right. The hindsight, of course. Right.
So I just put it out there. That's one of the things we do, and I really prefer to support our members and people in a proactive way. And but it's really the truth. It's not if an incident happens, when it happens. And I learned that through my career. I mean, I worked for BP. The oil company. I've had my share of when things happen, and I've typically been associated with them in the aftermath and recovery.
It's super interesting. I love it because it's what you're saying is so important, and I kind of want to go back on what I said. And I definitely didn't want to have a negative spin towards Justin and Ford and Breezer. That's not what I was saying. What I was saying, it just seems like there's a lot of all this shit could happen and it's going to be potentially really bad, but it's so very, very important. And so I definitely don't want to downplay that in a negative way. I think that putting this stuff out and making it public and you brought to the attention of, being proactive about it is in that these are differentiators that professionally managed vacation rentals and property managers are going to, if they adopt your stuff, if they adopt safety as something in the forefront of what they're doing every week and every day. I love what you're talking about, daily looking at this stuff daily and actions that they can do daily, this is going to potentially save or circumvent a lot of potential mishappenings if it's done on a daily basis.
Exactly. And one of the things I've been focusing on is because, one of the very early levels of what you take a look at is you look at what's your potential hazards out there, and you build a checklist and you do that kind of stuff. And that's effective. But then you really have to say, well, if we're doing that, why are we still having incidents in the industry? Right. Well, you can say, well, we need to educate more people. But here's what I've learned in 33 years of working in safety and health and safety leadership is training the frontline workers and those in your business are important. The leaders are important, right? And so I begin to address that. And more importantly, safety, we need to embrace safety as not something we do, it's something that we're being. It's inside of you. It's like being integral, being committed, being faithful. Those are things that happen inside of you. So when I talk about being safe, is it at my core identity, right? It's one of the things I've been working at for 3 years is learning about neuroscience. And I've been working to apply that in safety and vacation rental safety. And it's really, really fascinating. Doing things are good, but when I'm being safe at my core identity, then that means that I'm not going to compromise that because it's a value. It's who I am. It's not just something that's over here that I'm doing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
No, it does. 100%. I think Eric, sorry, go
Well,
man.
no, I was just going to say, and I think that's important, especially because of us and like being in hospitality and the challenge of, building safety into an experience, right? Like we're dealing with vacation rentals. Like we don't want it to be overly stiff. It still needs to be enjoyable to the guests, but it needs to be ingrained with safety in mind for the guests, for the property, for the owners, like everyone. Like it makes sense. So if you can ingrain that into and have that be a part of you in your strategy, deliberate things will be built and it will be able to be and kind of coexist within that space because that's what you got to create, right? At the end of the day, it has to be an experience that's safe, but it doesn't take away from the experience. People still want to go there, right? Like
You're exactly right. So for me, there is no hospitality without first having safety as part of hospitality. They're mixed, they're combined. I mean, you can't say I'm a hospitable host or property manager and not manage safety. I don't believe you can do it.
I agree with you 100% actually.
The other thing too is, who you are as a person and how you exude your being as a leader or someone in the leading a team like the founders and leaders of a property management company or managers. And if you are living and breathing as safety as who you are, that's contagious to the rest of not only to your employees, but that is also contagious to your guests. Your guests see that this is how we are, this is who we are as a company, and they want to come in and just by default, they're going to act in a similar type of fashion.
You're exactly right. And the fifth principle of that we have that I've adopted from work from a gentleman named Todd Conklin, the fifth principle of human operational performance is people are always watching the content. People are always watching what you're doing and who you're being. And it certainly applies in safety, but it applies to every aspect of our business, right? So people are always watching. Owners are watching, right? Guests are watching. And it may
Children
not
are watching their parents. It's the same type of thing. Kids act up if parents aren't necessarily,
Yeah.
Right.
Love it.
Yeah. And sometimes what they're watching for, it could be not what you're doing, but what you're not doing or who you're not being.
Great point.
Too. So yeah, it's really important.
You have 9 life-saving rules for vacation rentals. At least I see that on your LinkedIn
I do.
profile. So I want to make sure that are these easy to be found on your website? If not, if you have a PDF or whatnot, I want to make sure that that's able to be downloaded from coming to check out our your episode.
Yeah, I can certainly send that. And I've built a whole course around it, and happy to share those with you. I'll have to just pull them into a different PDF or something. I have them in PowerPoint today.
Awesome. I
And
mean,
then
whatever's
also
clever. We'll
I
make
added a 10th one. Go
again.
ahead.
10. You're gonna have to change your background then if you've added a 10th one.
I know. We're just gonna have to call it life-saving rules.
There you
I'll
go.
just talk a
Yeah.
little bit about the 10th one, right? Just because I think it's so important, and it's something we maybe we don't recognize. Lone worker, right? How many people in our industry are out supporting us in the vacation rental industry alone? Maintenance, inspectors, housekeepers, laundry team,
Yep.
people working remotely. Uh, I mean, it could be even in the support, people traveling, with property management software teams, and just lone worker is something maybe we haven't addressed. And I talk about it. I think I did an episode about it. Yeah.
I mean, give us a quick example of that since you mentioned it. So what do you mean by lone worker? Just
So
so you
lone
have to
worker.
be safe as a solo worker. For example, I travel a lot for work on my own, in the industry, or someone like you mentioned, going to do an install you're by yourself. Or these are just safety measures that, that this employee or person should be looking at um out and about on their own.
Exactly. Yeah, so we'll do a couple examples there. So you have a maintenance tech who's going to go out and look at a property. Now, I'm fortunate Gulf Shores Orange Beach is fairly compact within a maybe an 8 to 10 mile, radius. So it's not that bad. But still, if I dispatch a technician to go to a property, what systems do I have in place to know that he or she has arrived safely, that they performed the work? Do I have a check-in procedure where maybe they're working on a job that requires a ladder or something or anything? Just how have we checked in to see that that person is okay? So that basically 3 hours later, we haven't heard from Jim. What's happening? And so it's that process. Same thing with travel. When I was working for BP, and I did crisis management work, I traveled around the world. Wherever I went, most of the time I was flying, but I checked in when I arrived and checked in when I left,
Yep.
so that they knew, here I am, I'm traveling. It's just a check-in procedure, maybe with your supervisor or with the dispatch center or something. And once again, some of these things in safety doesn't have to be really, really high tech. It's just a way to say, hey, look, we care about you, and we just want to know when you get there, make sure you make it safe. Those are a couple of examples you could do for travel.
It's interesting because you think about, I used to work in machinery, I used to work heavy equipment, and anytime someone would go work on something, there was lockout tagout procedures, and there's all these different things that you have to do that are safety, not only for your safety while you're working there, but for other people that are going to come behind you. I don't necessarily think of safety in the way that you do, but maybe I should. And it's obviously very important. And I love this perspective.
I mean, one of the things that I'm working to change culture. Actually, I'm really working to establish culture within the vacation rental industry, because typically, when you look historically back at what happens through various industries in the last 100 to 150 years, safety is defined by catastrophic incidents or serious events that occur. And certainly we need to understand those and learn. But I'm a proponent of saying, I don't think we need that in the vacation rental industry. We don't need a serious event or more fatalities to understand what we need to learn, right? We need to build that culture, that framework going forward today, and not be reactive. And along the way, what I've looked at and saying is, and maybe people are going to have some heartburn with it, but safety is not about the prevention of incidents. It's the presence of controls.
Can you say that again, please?
Safety is not about the prevention of incidents. It's the presence of controls, right? So let's think through an example here, because how we work is not like how we work in general industry or oil and gas or anything else. We deal with a group of people called guests who we can't really tell always what to do and not to do, right?
Right.
They're going to do what they do because they're on vacation. So we have to put controls into place to protect them and our owners in our business, right? And an example of that is we're cooking, the guest is cooking, and it's late, and maybe they've been drinking because people drink when they're on vacation or holiday, and they fall asleep. And then now I need to have controls, right? Fire starts. I have a smoke alarm that activates at 85 decibels or higher and linked throughout the whole house so that everybody knows. That's control one. Hopefully that individual wakes up and they evacuate. Control number two is I have a fire extinguisher there in the kitchen that I can safely reach and attempt to extinguish the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Control number two. Control number three is I have two means of egress in and out of every room that I'm in, right?
Yeah.
And number four, what is the address of the property I'm in, right? If you're at a property in somewhere in the world, I mean, I have to think about my own properties. What's the address and where I'm staying at? I don't know, right? I know my address here at my house, but I don't know the address of the property. So I dial 911, and what do I tell the people? It'll take them 3 to 4 minutes at best to triangulate my location. But if I have the property address and who to call right there, once again, number four, I've worked to provide and recover from that situation. It's controls. I'm not going to prevent that from happening.
Right.
And I could talk to the guest about it, but it won't probably work.
Yeah, well, half the time it's in one ear and out the other, because you're right. They're drinking and they're on vacation and they have other things, and they got things happen, and it's not. It's the whole nature of going on vacation. It's like you're trying to unwind.
Right.
Yep.
And so you have to have controls present, right? Because I can measure controls. I can check controls. I can check all four of those things that are there. I can present them to the guest. And at some point they have to use them, right?
Yeah.
But that's the difference between saying, I'm going to prevent this incident. I'm going to say, there's no way I can prevent that incident. And if I did, how do I know what I did was what was effective?
No, it makes sense. It's almost because it's the management, right? These things are going to happen, but how do you organize the chaos afterwards, right? And how do you mitigate the situation, right? I like the idea of controls, because it's not just have a plan. It's be prepared, right? And have a plan. Like, there's action that has to take steps. Make sure you're, I like the fire example, you had your procedures, you had redundancies in place. Like, it was thought through as best you can, right? And, that's how you avert disaster. Because these things aren't fun to talk about. Like, going back to what John was saying earlier, and Justin, and when we talk about it, he's very forthright about it. And I think there's good in that, right? Because as owners, as leaders, you have to be thinking in line, especially you think about like the environmental things that are happening now, right? Like tornadoes, hurricanes, like these are real issues that people have to deal with, that, there are measures on the front end that can help in this space, because it's going to be a disaster either way. And it's going to happen at some point in time. How do you prepare? And, what do you do after it happens? Like, what do you have in place? I think that's excellent.
You prepare as much as you can. And then what we want, our goal is, right? So we're not about prevention. We're about controls to reduce significant or the outcome of significant incidents or fatalities. That's really what we're after. And it will be when. It's not if. When they occur.
Hey, so let's talk. I love this safety stuff. I want to make sure that we dive into some of your other stuff as well, Eric. And so if you're listening and you want to learn more about if you're listening, of course you're listening right now. If you want to learn more about this safer VR and everything you should and could be doing, go ahead and make sure you go to the website, click on the links. There'll be some special stuff there that Eric's going to share with you, and get signed up with Safer VR. and go that direction with that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of your investment stuff, Eric. Like
Yeah,
what
sure.
so you got your fingers in so much. Let's talk about some of the stuff you're doing with Guestor. Let's talk about some of this other stuff that you're doing. I'm really excited to hear your mindset of where the industry's going and how you and others can get involved with this.
Yeah, sure. So I started investing in vacation rentals, individually, like I said, quite a long time ago. But then I was also doing what's called syndications, where someone comes up and they have this idea and they want to raise capital. So you have to follow Security Exchange Commission rules there, the SEC rules. And I'd go out to people that have invested with me for probably the last 8 years. And we go out, we buy stuff, and it does pretty well. And then I switched that model to vacation rentals. We bought a property in Gulf Shores 2020, January of 2020, right? It was, a 4-bedroom property. It's doubled in value, right? And
Right.
it's a 6-figure revenue earner, and it was being managed by Picasa. Um, and then, of course, Current Tides manages it now. And so we just duplicate that model a few times. We did what's called 1031 exchanges in some situations where we purchased an asset, held it for 2 to 3 years, and then we sold it and just took all our proceeds and moved it into another investment that would generate a higher return for us. And we didn't pay taxes. That's the main thing, right? We
Right.
didn't pay taxes with the 1031 exchange. Certainly we've sold some assets that we've paid taxes, and it was 2022 was a big, tax payment year for me. Yeah. Yeah. So we did some of that, and then I like to explore different things. So when I heard about Guestor, I reached out to them, and I wanted to deploy capital in a passive way. You talked about all the different things that I do. And part of me that allows me to do that is I find opportunities where I can invest passively, right? And Guestor is completely passive. I mean, we had a good 2022 year in Guestor. And of course, Mateo's working with them now. I reached out to him, had some conversations, looking to add some additional investments this year there. But it's the passive vehicle and led by good people who have very, Mateo and I had this conversation because we've used it before in others, right? When I look at an investment, whether I'm doing it personally or I'm looking at someone else, I'm looking at, okay, I call it the jockey and the horse, right? So the jockey is the people running Guestor, and the horse is their whole business model that they're running, right? What are they purchasing? Guestor is a fund. Syndication typically goes after an individual asset. So I look at the asset, but I look more at the people who are saying, I'm going to buy that asset, because you can take a really good asset and not run it well, right? So, and you can also find a bad asset not performing with people who can run it well and turn it around. So I've done that with Guestor in a passive way. And I've also done it with a company called Stomp, STOMP Capital, which is ultra high luxury vacation rentals in the US and Central America. So I've kind of got active investments, passive investments. And, if you have the opportunity to invest passively, you can still do and love what you do, and just park money in that place and let it go with the right horse and jockey.
Are you,
You know what though? No, because now I got to give my shameless Guestor plug. And Eric, we talked about that too. That is surprisingly the return. Like that's surprisingly the value proposition that people really love is that the truly passive nature of it. Like I'm so surprised in those conversations, like that, how eager people are for an experience that really is that. And yes, I mean, you got to perform also but again, like just seeing at multi-level, like people having that conversation. Oh, there's no admin. Oh, it's truly passive. It's going to be interesting to see how that grows. Cause I think that's a value for a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, double-digit returns, limited tax liability. I'll share this one. We sold it a few years ago when we bought it. It was an apartment complex in the Houston Galleria, right? But it shows the nature of what a passive investment can do.
Yeah.
I invested $100,000 in the investment, and I never went to the property. I kind of know where the property was. I just read the reports. I cashed the checks, and 7 years later, I made $500,000.
Wow.
So you invested 100,000. So it's a 5x return.
5x return. Exactly. I mean, so that's what's out there. I mean, that now maybe not all of that's out there in today's market. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Real estate is the place to be to hold investments during inflation, moderate to high inflation times. Right. So, and deals can be made and are profitable in all markets. So
Yeah, just
even in these times right now, right? I think it's interesting, and more people aren't really talking about that. I think there's a lot of kind of scared for no reason. When I mean, it's a different time, but it doesn't mean that you should be solid.
It's not easy pickings like anymore. I could throw a dart and hit a property, buy it, and then do well. Not anymore. You really have to dig deep and analyze.
Well, Eric, from your standpoint, for someone that is, I've talked to obviously Mateo a lot about this, but from your standpoint, for someone that wants to go ahead and passively get into investment, say through Guestor or whoever, I know you can go ahead with Guestor and invest as little as like nothing, right? Or soon to be able to go ahead and just invest a small amount. But what do you think is the amount, if someone that is new to this, that is like for it to make sense, like what is in thousands of dollars? Like I have X amount of dollars that you're actually going to go ahead and feel good about your return over, say, 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, if it's all based on the individual and the asset, but I mean, you could probably do 10,000, 25,000. Yeah. Don't be scared when I said 100,000, because that was a few years back. Right.
Right.
But yeah, I think you could do 10 or 15 or 25,000. And then I don't know the Guestor model completely, but it may be where you could just do every few months you can add to your investment. So some investments say, hey, you have to come in and put X dollars up front. And then some say you can add to it as you go. But if I was going to do, 10 or 15,000 there, just to get started, just to say, hey, how's that feel? Be a good choice.
Because that may not be asking for me. Right.
Or it's for anybody. I mean, the other thing that most people I would say don't completely realize is, there's cash investments, and then you can do investments with your IRA, your individual retirement account, set up as a self-directed IRA. I started out when I started out multifamily investing in 2009, I invested 50,000 in cash in one property. And then I invested, I think 70,000 from my IRA in another property. And now that 70,000 was all I had. It's well into 7 figures now, with the valuation, right? 2009, 2010 was a great time to be investing, right? But yeah, that's also another option for investors to consider, is self-directed IRAs with a company that's very familiar with and investing in basically every type of asset that you could do. I do loans in there. I mostly do multifamily investments in there as well.
So I think the key to this conversation regarding, it's not too late to get started, no matter where you are, in your life cycle of, for me, we're talking about me here. I've invested in nothing my whole life. I have a decent amount of savings. It keeps growing. But I've invested zero in anything. And I know I need to change that around. For me, it's, in the industry I'm in, it's even like, I wouldn't say embarrassing, but it's like, man, how come I haven't like done anything with this yet? It's just more of I'm overly cautious, in a way that is, kind of stunts me, I think. And so I think, what I'm getting out of this is, find people you trust, find, get proper advice. And it's not too late to get started to invest in your own, wealth, generational wealth, later in life.
I mean, all about education, for you and for others who are looking out there, get information, get educated. I mean, that's pretty much what I did. And just, it's paid off, significantly through the years.
I'm on it.
You got to find your why, John. Like, you got to figure out what you're investing for and why you're investing, and then build your strategy off of that. So
we'll have a check-in in 4 months or 6 months. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Let's check in.
You progress your investment. Yeah.
It is. I think it's, there's always something that I need to be doing next. Like, that isn't necessarily that I know, like, for example, I have a decent amount, we as a family have a decent amount in savings that we want to go ahead, and go to our next home or our next whatever. Like, we know we have a plan of where we want to be. So I don't want to touch it. Right. Because I know I'm going to need that to put 20% down or something like that. And it's just sitting there. And so that's kind of my whole thing. It's like this, for me, it's never a right time to rip the Band-Aid off, because when you have the savings and it's there and you can access it at any time you want, it's great. But I also don't think about, I can access this other money. It's certain, if I put in the right thing, that money is available to me. And I don't think about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that you mentioned, illiquidity that's the big thing in real estate investments, right? Is that you're parking your money there. It could be 3, 5, 7 years. Heck, we were just talking about that one property I said I invested 70,000 with my IRA. We still own it 15 years.
Crazy. So, I mean, what's new for you? You mentioned that you're going to be potentially slowing down with all your new ventures. You just added this new, you're doing it's insulation thing locally, not foam, which is a new business venture. You mentioned prior to us chatting that you're just waiting on some trucks, so you can really get that ramped up and going. But like, is Eric going to slow down at all, or are you just going to keep cruising?
Yeah, I mean, the foam insulation business is it's a franchise we bought. We started with some partners back in September of last year, and we finally got launched, and we just self-funded it. And the growth area in that part of Houston is pretty significant, and we just see a lot of opportunity there. So I'm excited about that. And yeah, I don't know about slow down, maybe just looking more at what I have. I was going to say more is not better. Better is better.
Right.
So it's really what I'm looking at is just, I'm not working full time anymore other than all our businesses, retired from oil and gas. I wouldn't mind doing some safety contract work, but really just focusing on safer VRs, current tides, iPhone, our vacation rental properties in Fredericksburg. And, one thing we didn't talk about, which I need to talk about, is HereStays, right? We launched HereStays in October of last year. It's a Texas-based property. It's kind of like Verbo of the old days, but we only operate for properties in Texas. So we have about 200 properties right now from 5 pretty good property managers here in Texas who are allowing us we're marketing their properties for free to drive traffic so that we can build a market. Then we can use that as a direct booking option for property managers and owners in the state of Texas. And basically there's no traveler fees. There's just $199 to $399 fee and per property, and you can book it as much as you want. You can have 1 booking or 100 bookings, doesn't matter. We're just directing traffic. And basically,
I mean, you said you started that last year?
Yeah.
We launched in October. We finally got the site up in November, maybe October 30th or something, November 1st. So we've been working to drive traffic to it. And then bookings are going to owners or property managers right now. So we're looking for that to grow the market so that we can then flip a switch and say, okay, now we're ready to start charging for these properties that we're referring to you. So two property managers in each.
So this is Texas only. It's a listing site, but it's to drive awareness and attention to the Texas market, and it's all of Texas. You're looking at Gulf Coast. You're looking at major cities. You're looking at Hill Country. It's everything.
Everything, yeah. Right now, our property managers in Houston, Austin, San Marcos, Fredericksburg, Galveston, and maybe a little bit further down the coast in San Padre. And there. So, yeah. So we just chose some that we wanted to work with and get started, and looking forward to having that take off. So
yeah, just a couple of things. I'm on your HereStays website right now. It's beautiful. We'll link this as well. We're gonna on check out the website. There'll be like 10 links for Erica. Everything he's involved in. But it's cool, and I love the passion that you have behind everything, and you care deeply about not only obviously you care about making this profitable for yourself, but you give a shit about the industry, and I love that. You care about the communities that you're involved in. You care about the safety, and not only for the property, for the property managers, but for the guests and everything. I love your passion, and I'm excited to. I've learned a lot. I've every time we bump into each other at a show, I love chewing the fat with you and talking shop, and this has been fun. Anything? Any last things, Eric? Here that you want to share?
Yeah, one last part. I mean, when I started, I took a course, learned how to be in neuroscience, and I've adapted that to be able to support vacation rental owners, managers, revenue managers, and just talk about all things that are vacation rental industry related that hold people back, limiting beliefs, limiting patterns. Be ready to do some little short 3-week sessions with people. And once again, as you mentioned, it's all about serving the people in the vacation rental industry to be, who they want to be, whether it's safety. Everything's at the core, starts with safety and then moves out from there. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be with y'all today. And, as you mentioned, Eric at safervrs.com. I'm on LinkedIn a good bit, and we can chat about safety or property management or HereStays or whatever you want,
Love it. Or iPhone or current.
Yeah, man, definitely take advantage of that time. You'll be richer for it, for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. If you're listening to our, make sure that you're going to go ahead and like us, smash that like button if you're watching on YouTube. Please go ahead and follow us on Apple Podcasts. Leave a review. We truly, truly appreciate it. And definitely check out all the links and connect with Eric, because you're 100% going to be richer for it. Thank you so much for joining us today, Eric.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate it. Go out and create a safe day.
This podcast is a Hospitality.fm production.